So as a quick introduction, my name is Adrian Engel. I'm a project manager at Mark Thomas & Company, a local civil engineering and transportation design firm. And in my free time, I'm the TOD Advisory Council Chair, and I'm really trying to help promote, educate, and bring transit-oriented development to Sacramento. There's a lot of discussion about transit-oriented development in lots of other jurisdictions, but I'd like to sort of change that focus to be in Sacramento. And this has been a great process to sort of start that and see where we can be a leader in that area and not just a follower. So if those of you who don't know, ULI, or the Urban Land Institute, is a organization that promotes the research and education around the responsible use of land and creating sustainable, thriving communities worldwide. So the memberships include public and private sector professionals in planning, policy, real estate, and finance. So with ULI, you'll get a broad spectrum of expertise that will hopefully help facilitate this process and really bring all the information that the working groups have together into sort of a cohesive package to look at the different TPAs. So today, I've brought a publication from ULI called the 10 Principles for Successful Development Around Transit. I like to think of it as the David Letterman top 10 list for Todd. So what I'm going to do today is I'm just going to run through the 10 principles quickly. There's sort of 20 slides. The first slide describes general principles for the individual principle, and then the second slide for each one has some questions that kind of help you think about the individual TPAs or TOD or transit villages and how you can sort of apply these principles to make them better. So with that, the first principle is make it better with a vision. So the creation of a broader vision can help ensure that all developers pursue compatible strategies that reinforce the transit vision. And then those strategies will be supported rather than opposed by the surrounding community. So, we're all here for that reason. Bringing a vision and coming together with a common goal will help make these TPAs successful. So some of the questions you might ask yourself is the land use and zoning consistent with TOD? Is the government and the policy already set up in place to bring the TPA to life without having to change a lot of the existing standards? Is the project, and this could be on a development level or as a whole for the TPA, is it part of a master plan? And has that plan been brought to the community, and is there community input into the plan? So that way you're not having somebody sort of force a project down onto an existing community, but you're really looking for that attempt to build consensus with all the different users. And as we've seen in a lot of different transit villages in this area, some of them are harder than others to get sort of in place in the area. So bringing it to the community early and often is really important. The second principle is apply the power of partnership. Everybody in this room should understand this one really well too. We're all here from our different points of life and our experiences, really looking for how we can work together to make this happen. So with the public-private partnerships, they provide opportunity to set mutual expectations, to share risk, costs, and rewards. So the public sector has the power to resolve land assembly problems, ensure that the site is development ready, ease the entitlement process, and contribute land, infrastructure costs, or both. Where the private developers bring the real estate savvy, contacts with the end users, and an understanding of the final financial resources. So by bringing both private and public sector together, we can really sort of get through the big challenges that we're going to see in all of the different TPAs that we'll have. Again, some of the questions you might answer, is there an existing public-private partnership at an individual TPA that you can leverage to make it move forward more? And then, who are those partners? And I'll talk a little bit later about some of the types of people we may want to start looking at to sort of bring this forward more quickly. So the third point is the obvious one that we're talking about TPAs, but it's think development when thinking about transit. I like to reverse this one too and have it say think about transit when thinking about development. So there are areas right now where we have a robust transit system that we're looking for areas for these TPAs, but there's also planned transit systems that are going to be places where you'll see development in the future. It may not exist today, but as we're developing those areas, keep transit in mind as we're providing these plans and this development. So when transit does come through, the development's already transit focused. So some of these requirements, some of the questions are sort of built into the SB 375 and the proximity to transit that are requirements for being a TPA. But really looking at the proximity to transit, does the project have good pedestrian connectivity to transit? It's removing those barriers and making it accessible for all users. Do the planned densities meet the minimums to support transit? Not only do you have to make it accessible, but you have to make sure you can provide ridership to make the transit successful. The transit will then also make the development successful at the same time. And then finding out if there's a transit agency that's already partnered with a different development or a different site. I know Regional Transit is working with a lot of different developers at some of their existing sites to really move some of that development forward. So looking at all the TPAs and seeing what kind of activity you have from those transit agencies. Number 4 is get the parking right. This is a big one for what you want your site to look like and how the site's going to work. So the project must find the balance between providing parking and allocating sufficient land for the types of adjacent developments that will generate walk-on users. So flexible parking standards provide some latitude in providing the optimal number of parking spaces. So, looking to see if the parking's within a short walk to the site, but maybe not dominating the transit center itself. So you can put some of those uses adjacent to the transit station that people want to get to and walk on and off of the train to utilize. So it's finding that balance. It's also looking for ways to use shared parking, where if you can have a mix of uses, they may end up using the parking at different times, so you don't have to have so much redundant parking. So having employment centers and residential centers together that have a shared parking system that can use it during the day, and then other users using the same parking at night. So looking ways to consolidate that together. Number 5 is build a place, not a project. So Todd presents an opportunity not only for a project at a station, but for a full-fledged transit-centered community with all the attendant economic and cultural benefits. And that's really what we're talking about as we look at these TPAs, is looking at a larger area and looking at all the different benefits that a properly planned TPA can provide for the community. So the project should attempt to locate a transit stop at the center of the neighborhood, create an activity center, reflect the character of the surrounding community, include engaging public spaces, and promote pedestrian connections, and ensure round-the-clock activity. So, does the project create a cultural economic activity center? Does the project include public space to promote pedestrian connectivity? So really, again, looking for those other amenities beyond just the housing and the jobs or retail centers that can really make it so people want to be there and be active at those transit centers. So principle number 6 is make retail development market-driven, not transit-driven. So transit access can strengthen the retail market, but the market must be viable without the transit component. So the most important considerations for retail development are location, market, and design. So development plans for the areas surrounding the station should reflect the volumes that the retail needs. And this is an important fact, where just because there's a transit station there doesn't mean the users of the transit are going to be able to support the retail. The retail should really fit into the community that's already there and that you're building around your TPA. And those two things need to work together. So, having an economic analysis done, and that's already happening with this project, so I'm really happy to see that that's a big focus of what we're looking at in sort of the considerations for the different TPAs. So number 7 is one of my favorites because it's not necessarily the most intuitive. Number 7 is mixed uses, but not necessarily in the same places. So, everybody talks about creating transit villages and these mixed use centers, and where you're stacking retail and residential together, combining office space and residential space together. And in a TPA where you have a network of transit system, or a network of transit stops, you want them to be a mixed use, so you're able to walk from your work to your home, but they don't necessarily have to be at the same station. So looking at the transit system as a whole and being able to mix uses in the proximity to the transit system so it acts as a single sort of macro TPA.